Why did you stay at the embassy even though the government was practically ordering you to get out? They surrounded you with police. Why did you do this?
Well, we stayed at the embassy with the permission of the elected Venezuelan government, recognized by the UN, recognized the Venezuelan people, because the United States had allowed this failed coup representatives to take over other Venezuelan buildings in Washington, D.C. and in New York City. And we didn't want to see the Vienna Convention violated at the embassy in Georgetown. We thought that needed to be protected. We always said we would leave if there was a protection agreement between a third country and Venezuela that was recognized by the United States, and the same thing happening in Caracas with the U.S. Embassy. So we saw ourselves as interim protectors. We were there serving the role of protecting the Venezuelan embassy from a U.S. coup.
Were you successful?
I think we were very successful. I mean, we knew it would end in one of two ways. One, the unlikely result would be the U.S. would do what we asked and enter into a protecting order agreement that would allow for the embassy to be protected. We thought that was unlikely, but possible if we could develop enough pressure. I think if we had probably stayed another week, we may have had. I think momentum was on our side.
Definitely.
I think we may have had a real chance of winning that. But the way it turned out, it's going to be a fantastic opportunity. I think rather than protecting the embassy, we're going to actually end the coup.
Yeah.
We're going to end. The U.S. is going to give up on this coup, and this case will be part of the reason why.
Margaret, you all lost weight. You had to ration food. They shut off food after a while. How did you do that? Tell me a little bit about that mechanism.
Right, well, you know, we were determined to stay, and I wanted to just quickly add a little bit to what Kevin said, because we saw this as, not only were we there in solidarity with the Venezuelan people, we've been to Venezuela, and so we feel a real connection to the Venezuelan people, but as U.S. citizens, a responsibility to impact our government, to stop our government from violating the Vienna Convention, which would set a terrible and dangerous precedent that would put all embassies, including U.S. embassies, at risk around the world. If the Vienna Convention no longer applies, nobody else has to, you know, abide by it. That creates a real chaotic and dangerous situation. But also the U.S. literally failing in coup attempts, multiple coup attempts this year, and then recognizing that coup leader anyway and turning over assets to that coup leader also sets a very dangerous precedent that could serve as an escalation of tension with Venezuela, you know, create military conflict, perhaps because Russia and China are involved as allies of Venezuela, becoming a global conflict, certainly a regional conflict. And so this was, to me, it was a very big situation, that a dangerous precedent, a serious crossroad. They stopped the food deliveries. We were like, well, we cut down to 2 small meals a day and trying to make the food last. We had discussions about, well, younger people should be able to have more food because they have a higher metabolism, and us older folks, you know, don't need quite as much. And we'll, you know, had a lot of discussions about fasting if we needed to. And then when they cut off the power, we just dealt with that. We went to bed when it got dark. We woke up when it got light. We knew our way around the embassy, so we felt comfortable, you know, maneuvering around the embassy. And then when we lost our water, we kind of saw that coming. And so we had started, and thanks to David, who did a lot of this, literally filling every container that we could find in the embassy, trash cans. We just lined them with plastic bags, filled everything with water, and cut ourselves down to a daily minimum of 1 liter of water a day, you know, a minimum requirement. And you know, and so we were literally prepared to stay, you know, for months if we needed to. And you know, we changed our habits. We weren't, you know, we were very careful about bathing, using rainwater for that, about going to the bathroom. We set up a makeshift bathroom in the garage that we could use, where it would go directly into the drain, and we wouldn't have to worry about flushing toilets. You know, we just adapted, and everything they threw at us, we knew that our people in Venezuela have been experiencing the same things, the economic coercive measures that have cut off their access to food, the attacks on their electrical grid, on their water. It just deepened our solidarity with them and our resolve, knowing that if they could withstand this with such dignity, that we had to do the same thing.
Thank you. Adrian, you were in Honduras for a while. You stood studying there and you saw another situation where government was overthrown. How does this parallel that situation?
Right. I've been working in Honduras as an anthropologist for over 20 years now, and in 2009 there was a U.S.-supported coup that was carried out against the democratically elected president Manuel Zelaya Rosales in that country. That coup was orchestrated by a small group of lighter-skinned, powerful economic elites who were very tied in with the United States, economic interests, State Department, military, and they basically wanted this coup because they wanted to privatize. They wanted to neoliberal. I mean, we had a neoliberal agenda. In other words, privatize, deregulate, foment the trade and extractive industries, and strengthen the U.S. military presence in Honduras. And so, of course, they had the strong backing of the Clinton State Department. Now, in Venezuela is a much larger country. The basic elements are the same, in that it's U.S. supported, that it's a push to privatize, it's a push to concentrate the wealth of, and of course we know that Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world, not to mention diamonds and gold and other extractive resources. And that's what the U.S. has its eye on. But Venezuela also has a much larger population. It has a much more organized population with a consciousness about, sort of socialism and different ways of distributing wealth. And they're armed. They're militias. There's definitely going to be a civil war if this coup succeeds. It's going to be even more violent than it has been in Honduras. And it's likely going to escalate into a world war. And so, given what I've seen in Honduras, and given how horrible the situation is today as a direct result of the U.S.-supported coup, where we see people leaving by the tens of thousands, migrating north toward a situation that they know includes concentration camps, family separation, xenophobia, violence on the part of police and ICE agents. They're not leaving because of some American dream. They're leaving to save their lives. And given what I've seen in Honduras, the implications for Venezuela are even more dire, and for the world. And so that's why I chose to join these wonderful people and do whatever I could to prevent that from happening.
So many issues you brought up there, and that introduces so many other questions. So David, what inspired you to join this group? This is a historical moment in U.S. history. Never has a group of activists intervene in their own country's attempt to overthrow a government. And what brought you here?
Well, in one sense, I've seen our government's attempts to intervene in the lives and politics of other countries for most of my life, whether it was from Vietnam to Nicaragua, which I was more familiar with and spent time in. And this was the whole relationship of our government toward Venezuela. It brings up the same patterns of intervention, controlling resources, just as they've explained in many ways. And I saw this as a way to stand up against that, of our government usurping and destroying the democracy of another country, very hypocritically, and with a lot of disinformation, keeping most of the American public in the dark.